Well, here I am again, and this is a bit of an interesting video because it's going to be kind of a time capsule. This is New Year's Day 2018, so Happy New Year to those who are watching. We plan to retire in about 4.5 years, and perhaps we won't be going full-time, but we plan to spend a fair amount of time, maybe half a year anyway, in an RV. We may full-time for a while and then build a house and so forth. So I thought it'd be kind of interesting at this age for me to sort of comment in advance of what I think it'll all be like. Now, before we get started, I should say that I've been RVing one way or another for 28 years, I guess. My first one was my home-built truck camper, then a Class C now, or Class A gas 35-footer. And when we retire, the aim is to buy a new RV the way we want it set up. All the RVs I've bought or worked on before have been used RVs and reasonably older ones. And so it's been a lot of work to keep them going, and I do as much of the work as I possibly can myself to save the money. So it would be nice when we're done to have one where we set it up the way we want with the different features. And the features that I'm seeing in general right now, I would want to make sure, I love the idea the vehicle has as much capability as possible. So it has 1,000 watts of solar on the roof. We have 6 or 8 house batteries somewhere in there. It has all the instrumentation we have. We have all the different ways that we could use the vehicle to support undertaking. We of course can tow our Jeep with us and so on, and then bring the things along with us. So whatever it looks like when we're finished, that would certainly be the aim, would be to choose a floor plan and the set of features in the vehicle that allow us for boondocking, for camping any way that we wish to do. Also, we want to be able to allow for colder weather as best we can. Now, our mindset is to buy from Newmar. We like what we think, and from the standpoint of the quality, I like that they're handmade. I've been to the factory and seen the tour, and I was impressed, and I've certainly got to enjoy how the experience of that. And in our case, it'll probably be a gas RV for cost issues. We've been looking at the biggest gas RV they sell, which is the Canyon Star. We were originally very partial to the 3914 floor plan, which was discontinued at the end of 2016, and the 2000 and so this one of course had the nice L-shaped couch in it with the fireplace and so on. That was very nice. But they started with one this year that has intrigued me tremendously. We don't think the living room layout is quite as nice, but is the Canyon Star 3924. And what's exciting about this is the fold-down screen room at the back. Now, if you think about it, a 40-foot RV is only 5 feet shorter than the big diesels. And this type of Canyon Star has 3 slides to it, so it's almost a quad slide unit. And now you add the door coming down with probably, based on pictures, say 8 feet extended length, and you have your little patio there, and I would rig a screen system for it, given we live in Canada and the bugs are what they are in the summertime. But other than that, I think it'd be great. So now you've got a 48-foot domicile, which is pretty cool, and that's bigger than the diesels. And you still have your awnings, and you still have the ability to sit outside and so forth. So there's a very fun way. You have the living room, and then the kitchen area. You have your bathroom, shower zone. You have the master bedroom, and then now you have the screen room. So I just think that's really exciting, and would certainly look forward to a unit like that one. First off, the idea of full-time RVing to me appeals to me because of how you travel. If you travel by car and stay in hotels, you're going to be bringing, in comparison, less stuff with you. You're going to have a suitcase or two. You're going to be staying in hotels, and so the trip is minimalized in some respects. You're also traveling fairly confined in the car, and in comparison with the RV, you can bring, if you're full-timing, you bring your house with you, and you have all of your amenities. You have your bed, the one you sleep on every night. You have your own bathroom and your own toiletries. When you pack, you don't have to, or move rather, when you go travel, you don't have to pack up. Everything goes with you. So you're not going to forget anything because you have everything with you. And to fairly compare it, I mean, imagine the cost of traveling on a vacation where you have to take everything with you. I mean, that would cost a fortune to do that. And so the quality of travel, the comfort that comes with RV travel, in my view, would be hard to replace, and certainly for the cost. And that's even when you include the cost of the vehicle and its depreciation, in my view. And they say, well, I go on a cruise and it's all provided for me. Yes, but you're very confined about the situation, and it depends. If all you want to do is get on an airplane, go to a hotel, and sit on the beach for 2 weeks, I suppose you can do that. But there's a lot more to life than that, and there are so many fascinating, interesting places. One of my hobbies is history. Another one, of course, has been hiking and outdoor adventure and so on. And so, North America, from north of the Rio Grande, has, a lifetime of opportunities to investigate. I think the other thing that's wonderful with an RV is to see things. Now, like I said, if you're an urbanite, none of this really appeals to you, but you have a cottage, however nice it is, it's on the same lake. It's not going to be on a different lake next year. An RV can be on any lake. It can be in a national park where you can't have a cottage usually, and you can have, quote unquote, your cottage in Yellowstone, and then 2 months later it can be Yosemite, or it can be somewhere else, in beautiful locations. And of course, a lot of beautiful campsites are not necessarily in famous national parks. They can be anywhere. All kinds of little beautiful corners, so to speak, in a lot of places. And so, to me too, the amount of maintenance, when I had friends over the years who've had cottages, I can understand if they're a little bit handy and they're in the city during the week driving a desk, they want to get out and do stuff. And so they go up to the cottage and they work all week on the cottage. They're building a porch, or they're, painting, or they're fixing this, or the pump failed, or some other construction project. And for me, I couldn't understand the logic of that because, you're working pretty hard at your job and you need to turn off the switch. And I'm not so sure sometimes that cottagers get to do that. And so with RVing, there's just a lot less stuff, and a lot less things to clean, a lot less things to break, a lot less of those types of things. And so you can get together. I mean, for example, you can clean the whole RV in a half an hour. If we're not dealing with some kind of catastrophe, vacuuming the carpets, wiping the floors off, cleaning off the counters, a half an hour is doing it easily. And a half an hour in a home is not, you're not even started yet. So there's no comparison to me in the maintenance aspect of it. One of the things that I can't wait to do when I retire is to get off the rat race. The days are too long, and the pace is too intense. There's time for nothing. It's go, go, go. This has to be done. That has to be done. We have to be here. We have to be here at this time. This has to happen. And of course, there's pressures. Something will go wrong. Something will break. There'll be an issue. You have to go to the bathroom at the most inconvenient time. All the rest of it. And all it does is create a whole bunch of stress. And you come home and you only have an hour and a half or whatever, or 2 hours before you have to go to bed to turn around and do it again. So one of the things I really look forward to when I retire is for both of us to invest in ourselves, is to get enough sleep, is to eat properly, is to exercise, is to operate at a different pace. As some of the people have said, that your plans are set in jello, so that, here's what we're planning to do today, but, if it doesn't quite work, it's so what? You make a couple of phone calls and you make whatever arrangements and you fix it. And so I'm really looking forward to that. And, I want to go to places and see them and enjoy them. So I don't want to have these crazy. I did a trip this summer, which was very interesting. And given that I have to work for a living, this is sort of how it works. And we came out of north of Toronto here, went across to Detroit, ended up in Dayton, Ohio, over to Springfield, Illinois, then to Mansfield, Missouri, then to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, then to St. Paul, then to Napanee, Indiana, and back home again in 16 days. And we saw lots of neat things, but in 16 days, we had 9 days of looking and 7 days of driving. Because of the pace you have to maintain, because you have to get back, because, in that case, my sister had to go back to work. In other cases, it might be me that has to go back to work, or you have some other obligation. And you'd want to, I went by and you'd see rail trails and you'd see lots of things that, gosh, it'd be nice to spend a few days in this area or that area, exploring the various things that are there. Would have been nice. And so one of the things, like I said, is when you get done working, to turn the switch, not off, hopefully there's a few years to go before that happens, but to turn the knob back a bit and really, as they like to say, smell some of the roses along the way, because there's a lot of neat stuff and there's a lot of neat activities. And just sitting beside the RV in a lawn chair is one of those activities I'm looking forward to. Another aspect that I think is daunting to some people, is the idea of the management. The RV is a big, complicated machine with lots of systems and warranties and things to check and things to verify and all the rest. And to some people who perhaps are mechanically inclined or whatever, that seems like a huge burden, a lot of work. I go to a hotel, there's someone who takes care of that. If this isn't working, I make a phone call and that's the end of it. I enjoy it. I would have liked to have been an airline pilot if my eyes had been different, but I find it fascinating to monitor the systems, to run the RV in an efficient way, to extend the use of our consumables so that we can, if we're boondocking or whatever, we can last longer. I find the whole thing absolutely fascinating. And so for me, it's a great kind of thing. And that's another reason why I want to buy a new one, is that we can manage the warranties, we can manage how this vehicle is being maintained, because that matters to me a great deal. And it's just be nice for once to have a new one and hopefully do it correctly. I think this leads to a second discussion on the idea of management, and that is with respect to your finances. When you have a home and the usual, let's not get into toys, but just the house and the in your car or whatever, and you live in a particular community, you drive to work and so forth, there's a whole bunch of costs that are pretty much fixed. If you have a mortgage, that doesn't change, hopefully, too much. Your car expenses, the amount of gas you spend, your insurance every year on your home and your cars and so forth, all those types of things, your telephone bill, the heat and hydro and so forth, those things over 1 year, from 1 year to the next, aren't all that much different unless something radically changes. And so you really have very little influence over that. One of the problems that we have, at least here in Ontario, is that the hydro bill and the gas bill have all these ancillary charges. So you pay, so much, let's say, for a kilowatt hour of electricity, which is fine. But within that is other charges, transportation charges, administrative charges, and so forth, that if you modify your usage, it doesn't materially affect your bill. Now, I don't believe in that policy. I think that policy is inappropriate, but, they don't care what I think, so, it happens. And the gas guys are about the same. there is fluctuation with use, and the gas one shows it probably more than the hydro does. I think all these utilities should be sold like gasoline. It'd be so much a gallon, a liter, or whatever. If you don't buy it, you don't pay for it, and that's just the way it is. But you know, that they don't agree with me. So the wonderful thing about RVing is that you have complete control pretty much. I mean, if aside from a payment on the RV, which you may have incurred if you're borrowing to buy it, but let's suppose that you own it for one reason or another. You sold your house and that kind of stuff, which is probably what we'd be doing. And so now it's only going to be the cost of the operation and the lifestyle. And you have complete control over that. You can boondock. You can camp at an expensive resort. You can drive a long way. You can drive no way. You can camp at friends and family. You can do a host of things. One of the things we thought maybe of doing was having buying a piece of land and putting a post up and plugging into the post when we get there. If ultimately we build a property or something like that, and so forth. So there's a profound, I mean, I guess if you are on the road, you're looking, okay, so you'd maybe have cell phones, and that's going to be, say, a fixed cost. And you'll have insurance on your RV and on your car. That'd be a fixed cost. So you're going to have a sum of them, there's no question. But I think it's a smaller percentage of all the money you're going to spend in a month, and you have far more control over how your life moves forward. I think that's really great. I see people saying that they try to do it for less than $100 a day per month. I agree with that, because I think the other thing too is, sure, you can go bare bones, and I guess if I was 25 I might have done that, but I'm 55 and I'll be 60 before I'm done, and I don't want to do that anymore. I don't have to live with granite tabletops and crystal chandeliers, but I want a vehicle that is comfortable, that works. I can come in, I can have a shower, I can turn on the air conditioning, I can turn on the heat, I can watch television, I can watch DVDs, I can be comfortable in comfortable furniture that suits me. I'm 6'4", 240 pounds. I don't want to fold myself into some small vehicle. And a lot of these smaller motorhomes are almost as expensive as the RV we're looking at anyway. So I would take the space. They might say, driving it, oh, that's, it's such a big thing. And I've found that it's not that much different. You simply have to be more mindful when you're in close quarters, when you're turning. But going down the road, you wouldn't even notice the difference. The high seat position you get used to. It's a bit of an adjustment when you haven't done it in a while, but you get used to it. And it's wonderful. That's all there is to it. It's just wonderful going down the road with the big windshield. I just love it. When I finish a trip and I've been away for 2 or 3 weeks or whatever, and I come back and put the RV away, it's as if I've never left. I just feel like I'm not even beginning to get my fill of the experience. And of course, the other thing is your vacation costs are far cheaper because you feel like you're on vacation. You can take a rest, if you will, from your vacation. If you're on the road for 10 years, and you're basically not necessarily working, you might offer your services to a campground and do a bit of work camping here and there, and that might be okay. But a lot of places, if you have your pension or whatever it is that you're using to finance this whole lifestyle is sufficient, you live pretty good, and you just do your stuff. And there's, between boondocking and different types of campground clubs, you can save an enormous amount of money on campsites, and it just depends. We generally choose to camp in parks if we can. Their rates are quite reasonable, and at the same time you have more space between the sites. But even then, $20 a night might be too much. If you figure that over 360 days a year, it's still $7,500. It's a lot of money out the door for campsites. So, but that's something you learn, and we'll work it out. And finally, I think what I have here today, and again, it'll be interesting to see how this video goes when we look at it in the future, is the idea of missing and/or seeing friends and family. In our case, we live in a town that's some distance from our friends and family. They're they're an hour or two away, sometimes as much as 6 or even 1,000 miles. And so I'm not saying they never come here, but they don't come here very often, and if they do, it's only for a day or two. And I think the one thing that we may find if we are full timing is that we can go to them, and you could stay in their driveway or whatever for a week or so at different times of the year, and you actually see them more and experience their lives more. And I think that actually may well work. Um, I'd be tempted with some family members that we get along with or whatever is to offer to pay to have, say, even a 30 amp plug put in. I put a 30 amp plug in my garage, and it's just a breaker, and you run the wire into the box, and you run it to the garage and put the plug together. It wasn't very difficult because the 30 amp plugs are wired the same as a regular 15 amp plug. It's just you need a bigger breaker and better wire, of course. The 15 amp plugs are a bit more complicated, but I think for our RV that we're talking about, the 30 amp would be enough to do most of the things anyway. Certainly, as time goes on, most of the electrical appliances will be taking less power and doing more with it because of improvements in technology. So we'll see where we end up down the road, and how this all plays out. It is me and my wife. It is an exciting idea of how we might spend or at least the early days of retirement, and we're looking forward to having that opportunity. And those are some of the strengths that I see in this lifestyle going ahead. I like to explore. We could pull into a town in anywhere in the States or in Canada, and I haven't been in that town before, and so I'm just curious to see what that town looks like, and walk around it or visit it, just because it's interesting. And so it doesn't always have to be in a national park or some fancy place. So again, Happy New Year, and thank you for listening.